So tally ho, we line up out here just to get started. For those of you out in Streamland, welcome to the temple. To those of you who are here, awesome. Tonight is going to be about mindfulness, learning to watch your mind so carefully, like if you were a dancer, learning to be more aware of your body, but you're learning how to dance through life by being more aware of your consciousness. So we just have this little ritual as we enter the temple. Just as you're entering, it's like you're making this time, you're carving out some space in yourself to give the awesomeness in you the attention that it deserves. So as each one of us walks in, I invite you to just bow or have a moment at the entrance to just be like, yeah, I'm doing something great for me. And if you want to, you can have a moment with the enlightened being and just let yourself feel the wisest, clearest, most powerful, awesome part of you. Whether you're there on the live stream or whether you're walking in, each one of us as we enter, just let yourself feel more and more connected with the part of you that believes in peace, believes in wisdom, that can imagine calm, that can imagine clarity, the part of you that can be happy, comfortable, easeful. You can start to notice your breathing and breathe more intentionally, deeper, slower. You can notice your inner voice and let your mind start to talk a little slower, more soothing inner voice. All right, and those of you who are here, I want you to know these sessions are for you. I want to make them awesome for you. So please feel like, hey, this is a time for you to get the most out of. And those of you out on the live stream, actually, I'm gonna make you just float here so that I can see what you guys write, answer your questions. And I want you to feel just as much a part of being here in the temple as those of us that are here in VR. But I definitely encourage you to actually join us in VR if you ever get the chance. Chrome House, please grab a seat. We've just all arrived. We're just getting started. Tonight's session is about mindfulness. And, this can mean different things to different people. But I'm going to start with a general definition and then narrow in. And if you've heard these definitions before, I invite you to really internalize them. Feel yourself being a master of each thing that I describe. And if these ideas are new to you, perhaps a good way of understanding them is to also imagine what you would be like if you had really mastered each thing that I suggest. So mindfulness in its broadest sense means awareness. So when you're talking to others, being mindful is being aware of the impact you're having on others, being aware of your body language, being aware of how you feel, how you express yourself, being aware of the emotional impact you have on others, being aware of how they receive what you've said. When you are being mindful of your surroundings, it's being aware of, like, where am I sitting? Being aware of the space that you're in. You could imagine being in an expensive store with delicate things all around you, if you're being very careful to not knock anything, you're putting extra attention into being mindful of the space around you. And now, one form of mindfulness that I think deserves a lot more attention from everybody is being mindful of your own consciousness. How am I speaking to myself? What do I believe about myself? And as well as being aware of it, there also comes the ability to choose it. So for example, if I've said to myself, you're always so bad at that, as soon as I'm aware of that, I'm then also able to say, hey, I'm learning and I'm getting better. Or if I'm aware that I've gotten angry about something, or if I've gotten into an emotion that's not enjoyable, as soon as I'm aware of that, I'm then able to step out of the feeling that I've got into and focus on the feeling that I do want. So mindfulness, as we practice it, is the ability to notice as well as the ability to take control. Some groups of mindfulness will just say, hey, you notice things come and go. But I actually want you to become so mindful in every moment that you get to the point of mastery of your consciousness. Something that happens that would have been challenging in the past, and straight away you choose, how do I want to respond to this that's as awesome as possible? You see some feeling starting to come up that's not great, and you just step into the feeling that is great. You see beliefs about yourself that help you, and you make them stronger. You see beliefs about yourself that maybe are unhelpful, and straight away you can just label, that's just a belief that I held. What if I felt differently about myself? What if I thought differently about myself? So my intention for today's session is to have some time practicing or learning how to develop this mindfulness, how to check in and see what you're thinking and what you're feeling, but also to empower you to feel that at any time you can change or shift what you're doing in your consciousness. And let me show you. Look at my hand. And now look at the bowl. And now think about an elephant. You can change what your consciousness is doing. There are some times where you get kind of caught up in a thought. But with practice, you can also intercept that thought halfway through. You can shift your focus. I want you to notice the sentence that's in your mind. And then notice the next sentence that's in your mind. But at the end of that sentence, I want you to really focus on feeling your breath. And then notice the next thought that's in your mind. And if possible, halfway through the sentence, try to just come into your breath. And so I hope you can see that it's possible to move your attention. And I hope you could imagine, if you mastered that skill, how you would always be able to train that the thoughts and feelings that you put your attention into are the ones that help you. And if you've had some habits or emotions that have been a struggle or hard. I hope this also empowers you, that you'll be able to see whenever your mind's doing that and just step out of it. Maybe you'll just step back into peace and stillness and just let go of that thing. Or maybe you'll create something else. Like this example I use so often is that I used to be very shy. And then once I learned mindfulness, as soon as I noticed shyness, I'd step back into just feeling calm. And then I'd imagine having a good time with people. And I'd step into feeling like I was having a good time with people. So that's our intention for today. To learn to be more aware of what's happening in our consciousness. And to practice that more and more, that, hey, instead of just checking in once a week or once a day or once an hour or once a minute or every few seconds, my ideal for everyone is that we're constantly aware of our consciousness. And it's a practice, it's something we get better and better at, that awareness is just more and more present. And coupled with getting better and better at being mindful, I also want to empower you that you get to create where you put your attention. Just as easily as I can say, look at your hand, I want you to be able to put your attention into peace. And with practice, you can just full power go into peace. And in the same way, I'd like you to be able to full power go into happiness, bliss, confidence, playfulness, or any other kinds of thought or habit or state of mind that you would choose. That's my intention to you, for us today. Practice this awareness and practice this choosing where you're going to focus and feel. All right, so Zara's jumped in on the live stream. She says, hi everyone, have a peaceful and fulfilling week. Great to have you here. Thank you. Let me just jump the camera around. Can everyone here in the temple give everyone a wave or send out some smiley emojis or hearts? Awesome. It's great to have you all here. All right. Now we are going to start with a mindfulness meditation. For those of you who are new here, if you've meditated before, I invite you to try the meditation technique I'm guiding. I encourage that to everybody. You know, sometimes people have, hey, I've learned meditation, and then when they get exposed to other kinds, they won't really experience those other kinds fully because they're doing the one they are used to. And if you're brand new to meditation and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm just going to suggest some things like focus on your breath.
Oh yeah, just like how they have other names, just like how they have the Gahana one, the other one I can't remember the name of, but they have like a couple of names.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I think there was like 4 names of it.
No, I've experienced hundreds of different kinds of meditations. So yeah, if you go to different places, there's all different kinds. Meditation, as far as I think about it, it's just a word that means doing something intentionally with your consciousness. And just like there's different kinds of music and different kinds of art, there's different kinds of meditation. And but if you're new to meditation, I'm going to give out some suggestions, and I just invite you to just follow along. Just try it. If I make a suggestion like, hey, your mind will become peaceful and still, some people will have their mind just become really peaceful and still. And maybe yours will just be a little more peaceful and still. And that's okay. Like whatever happens, you're just enjoying. It's like if you're going to a dance class and people are doing moves. If you're brand new and you don't know how to do the moves, that's all right. You just try and enjoy yourself. And if I talk about infinite peace and stillness, maybe some of the people will be able to dive into that. Everyone else are just kind of learning how it is to get their focus there. But I also want to say, if you're a regular meditator and I do put out an idea that sounds far out, like infinite perfect peace, I'd like you to try to take that seriously. Try to imagine, what would infinite perfect peace feel like? All right, so let's begin our meditation. We're just going to start by having a little shake. Just become aware of your body. Maybe put your arms up a little bit. Pull your shoulders back. Move your spine around. We do this just so that when we do sit still, our bodies will feel nice and centered and good. So then you can let your hands find a comfortable position. Pull your shoulders up and back and then let them rest. That makes my spine sit up nice and straight and makes me feel strong in my body. And
where are you?
we're just about to start a meditation, so I just invite everybody to grab a seat. And next we're going to take a very slow, deep breath. And if you're brand new to meditation, the reason we change our breathing and focus on our breathing is people find that it's a very soothing thing for the body and for your mind. So as you take a few more slow, deep breaths, each breath you take, try to make it feel just a little more soothing, a little more calm, a little more relaxing. And as we're moving into meditation, you can set some intention. You could imagine, wow, I'm going to spend some time just watching my mind and learn to be more aware of what my mind's doing. Maybe you could imagine what it would be like to be really aware of your mind in each moment, to feel like you're the master of your consciousness. And maybe you'd also like to set the intention or imagine feeling really peaceful, feeling really still. What if your consciousness changed and you felt empowered and spacious? And maybe you've also had some amazing meditation techniques or amazing experiences. So you just take a moment to set the intention for openness to wonderful experiences that sometimes arise in meditation. And as we enter the next chapter of the meditation, I just invite you to decide that you're going to let your body be still. Your hands still, your arms still. Take a deep breath and feel your whole body at peace. And as we keep our focus on stillness and awareness, we're also going to let our mind become still. So I invite you to just feel your breath, listen to your breath, like your breath is coming in and out, and you're trying to really take your focus into the breath. And as your mind becomes just the feeling of the breath and just the sound of the breath, all the other thoughts could just disappear. Bit by bit, you're learning how to take all of your focus on the breath. And it's so interesting to watch the moments where your mind is in the breath, and then the little things where your attention moves, or you hear a sound, or some little thought arises. But you just keep watching that point of your attention and learning how to have it centered, anchored in feeling and hearing the breath. If you notice you started just off in some thought, as soon as you remember, you just watch how it is to bring yourself back into feeling the breath, hearing the breath. Maybe you can see how to make your attention feel stronger, or how to be more settled and more calm in the experience of the breath. Some people find a really good way to steer your mind is to envisage or imagine what you want it to do. So you could imagine if all of your consciousness was just the breath, the feeling and sound of the breath. Imagine if everything else faded away and then disappeared. If you were pure immersion in just the breath. Imagine every moment of your consciousness just purely wrapped up in perfect focus. The nanosecond that anything else happened, you're even more back into the consciousness. And you may notice the longer you've spent just breathing, how things feel different. Some parts of your mind are just relaxing. The inner voice is just relaxing. It's making space for a calmer, more present, more powerful part of you. But our focus and our thoughts is just on the breath. So just keep breathing and enjoying watching, learning how you guide yourself into each moment of the breath. learning how to create a deeper focus, purely hearing and feeling the breath. Maybe you haven't even had a moment yet of being fully immersed in the breath, and your attention's just wandering around that. Imagine going completely into just feeling and hearing this whole breath. And whether you've just arrived or whether you've been here all along, letting yourself imagine perfect concentration. Each breath you take, imagine your mind being more captivated. As we're just breathing, it's such a simple thing that we do. We have to breathe anyway. And by learning to focus on that, you get to see anything and everything else that your consciousness is doing. And you learn how to bring the focus back. You learn how to let go of things that would otherwise carry your mind away. You learn how to release the tracks of the mind and more powerfully focus where you choose to focus. Plus, the breathing is soothing. It's a way to settle and relax. It lets every part of your mind refresh, clear, realign. It can bring perfect peace and calm to the body. Each breath we take, we're more centered, more completely feeling and hearing the breath. You may notice some thoughts arise, or feelings arise that you might have been having a few times. And the feeling of just letting them go, coming back to the breath, you may notice that thought or that feeling just loses. Perhaps it was some thought or memory that wasn't helpful. And by just bringing yourself into the breath, you let go of the unhelpful feeling. It's just like it's unhooked, it's gone. Every moment that we come into the breath, we're just releasing attachments and patterns and stepping into freedom, ease, and power. The simple act of holding your attention into the breath. Give it so much love. Cherish what amazing things it can do for you. Relax and rest into the breath. Feel the power in the breath. We're going to have 10 more just breaths before we move into the next part of the meditation. So for 10 breaths, cherish each moment. Try to give it as much focus as you can. So this guided breathing meditation is for a handful of minutes. If you practice it each day, you'll go deeper, more regularly. The awareness will become more amazing. So if you like how you're feeling right now, I invite you to decide that you'll listen to that guided breathing meditation again. Or maybe even share that clip of the video with others. And many of you may notice that your state of consciousness has shifted. You feel more at peace, your mind's more open. Many of you will also have shifted consciousness, but maybe in a way that your conscious mind just doesn't notice as much yet. And with this shifted state of consciousness, many people find their positive imagination is more powerful. Their ability to focus on different things is more vivid, can be felt more beautifully. And so I just invite you to imagine a feeling of greater peace. Imagine yourself feeling calm, like you're sitting in a large open field, or you're on top of a mountain enjoying a magnificent view. Or your body is perfect relaxation. Maybe you could imagine perfect peace, an infinite ocean of calm that was unshakable. Maybe you could imagine if that idea or that feeling of perfect peace filled you up, like your whole core, your whole self, every part of you, every feeling, every thought, every part of your body became perfect peace, perfect calm. We're going to imagine one more thing, and then we'll do a little more breathing to finish the meditation. So just enjoying the peace that you've made. Have a little wow. I can shift my state of mind, and I can make beautiful feelings, and I'm getting better every day at watching my consciousness. I'm getting better every moment at watching my mind and choosing where I put my attention, choosing which feelings I put my consciousness into. So we're going to have a little flight of fancy. I just invite you to imagine if you move through the day with this empowerment as the central part of how you think, how you feel. So you move through your day, you could choose, perhaps you move through with playfulness and laughter and joy. Perhaps you move through your day feeling enthusiastic or expressive or vibrant and wild. Maybe you imagine confidence and kindness. Maybe you imagine focus and creativity, maybe purposefulness. Maybe you want to go through and visualize some specifics. Wow, if I was in that situation with full creative power, I would be like this, and I'd do that, and I'd say this, and it would feel great. Or maybe you can just feel yourself as this brain engineer, this designer of yourself. Feel strong and awesome that you get to practice and create, and bring awareness and bring choice into everything you do. And make it feel great, make it playful, make it joyful, make it overflowing with love. It's beautiful what you can do with your consciousness. I'm going to come back to just a little more just breathing. Just deciding to learn to watch your awareness and focus your awareness. If you're excited to keep imagining, notice that, but then come back into the feeling of the breath, the feeling of presence and being empowered. If you're thinking things, notice the words, and then come back to just hearing the breath. How powerfully you're training your concentration to go where you choose. And right now, we choose to be anchored in our breath, stillness and power in every moment of your consciousness. Notice what your consciousness is like right now. And imagine if you just let go of all of that and you just felt the next breath. Practicing in any moment, just being able to fully let go. This stillness is a foundation that you carry with you in every moment. So let yourself be in that stillness. Deepen that stillness. And over the next minute, we're going to move from the meditation back into the temple. So you can notice what your consciousness is like now. You can notice how you feel. You may notice as you start to think more about the temple, how your consciousness changes compared to thinking about the breath. At some point you'll notice being aware of the people around you. You might notice how that feels. You might choose to feel differently about it. At some point you'll notice when you want to open your eyes. You'll notice how your consciousness changes, moving from meditation back to some other state of consciousness. And the next thing we're going to do is just share. If you had a nice feeling in the meditation, I invite you to share it. If you had an interesting insight, I'd love to hear it. If you had an amazing experience, I'd love you to share it. Let's start with just sharing the nice feelings, the interesting insights, the enlightening insights. And then afterwards we could have any questions or other experiences. So if you had something that feels great or something that you thought was amazing, please jump in and share it. It's open to everybody. And if you had some experience and you're not sure how to articulate it, please also try. And as you try to put it into words, I'm sure you'll find some way to describe it or think about it. Amazer, how was the meditation for you? Oh, you have to be quiet right now? Okay. I hope the baby is also feeling the peace and calm that you created. Taoho?
I would say it felt very relaxing. One of the first complications is I think conscious or subconscious is very difficult, very intertwined. Um, but it felt like it was a good beginning.
You know, that's such a wonderful bit of feedback. I'm glad you feel relaxed. And yes, the conscious and subconscious can be so intertwined and complex. And that's actually why I love starting into that foundation of stillness. Trying to change things or work into different things while you're tangled up in stuff can be quite complex. But if we practice just putting everything else aside, you let the mind become still. You just let go of stuff, let go. It's kind of like making a blank drawing board, a blank canvas to paint something new. And every moment that we come back into the breath, every piece of stillness that we feel, you have more of this freedom in yourself. And I invite every one of you, if you ever notice yourself struggling through something inside, or trying to think through something, if you ever notice yourself tangled up in old patterns, I invite you to just imagine, what if you just let all of that go? And what if I could just be anyone right now? What if I could think anything right now? In fact, I hope you carry that in every moment. Wow, if I could feel anything right now, what would I feel? If I choose infinite bliss, I might need to focus on it for 30 seconds to get there. But hey, we just practiced learning how to focus. We've practiced shifting our consciousness into different ways of being. So Taoho, I think that was a wonderful thing to share. I'm glad you're feeling relaxed, and I hope that's a huge jump towards enlightenment for you.
Much.
Would anyone else like to share?
I gotta say that it's really nice, but also I can't really also help the fact that your voice kind of reminds me of that one YouTuber, the one about the Aether door or something.
I'm not sure who that
You
is.
two sound very similar.
Cool.
Actually, it's that one guy, like something about the spiritual door or something, where he mentions about, something about the astral plane or something. Like, not to sound weird or anything, but like, you two actually kind of sound similar, so I kind of sometimes can't help like I don't even know if you were like one of those YouTubers or something. So it's like,
Well,
so it's
you can
never
check
mind,
out
never
all
mind.
my YouTube videos. There, we put them all
Alrighty.
up. But yeah, none of my videos are about spiritual things. They're as far as I
Okay.
understand, most of those things is, our imagination can do amazing things. If you keep imagining something, it will start to feel real. And so while people can get themselves to see their spirit guides or chakras or astral realms, as far as I'm concerned,
Oh
that's
yeah,
just
and you can also
flight.
get like emotional experiences.
Yeah, so you can
Just
take
like
yourself
how
in.
like sometimes you get like you can have like other emotions that get released all at once, kind of like a rocky mountain, like all the rocks just drop down. It's like sometimes it could just be pebbles or boulders just dropping down all emotionally all at once, like anger or anything just gets released.
And so the
And
fact that
sometimes
our
you get that
minds
twitchy sensation.
can do such far out things, I want to engineer stuff that's awesome for you. If you were to create some way of being that just got rid of all the feelings that don't help you, it's just you became perfect ease and peace, like a rocky mountain with all the boulders rolling away, leaving just the center of pure awesomeness. If I can create that concept in you, great. But I'm not ever going to put in a concept that's not real. If some people imagine some spirit guide or some imaginary world, you keep imagining it, it might seem real, but I want to put it out just the stuff that is practical and awesome. Our minds are so amazing. And if as you master it and you create more happiness and peace and confidence, and then you can share it with everybody around you, if you let yourself have this mental freedom to then believe imaginary things, people are going to think it's wacky and crazy. And so I think that the world deserves you being awesome in a way that is real for everybody. So I hope that if there's any ways that
But
I
in
remind
reality,
you,
that's how other religions are made.
yeah, a lot of them don't really care about evidence or like checking if stuff's true. I really care about
Well,
checking
who
on
needs the
evidence.
evidence when it's actually, if spirituality, like if people believe the sun and moon is God, or if they believe, like for example, like the trees or the rocks or anything around them is God, then you know what? That's exactly how religion's supposed to be. People are supposed to believe in themselves, not like let the world tell them who to believe. It's kind of like something that I believe in the most.
Um, can we
Again, it's
come
like
back to
it's a
this
good thing to
topic
have belief, though.
after we
Okay, okay.
wrap
Sorry.
up the meditation more? Like maybe some people are in some really amazing spaces, or maybe you were in a really amazing space, and I invite you to just kind of remember how you're feeling or the insights that you had, and let's just take a little bit more time
Yeah,
to.
all those kind of actually did pop in my head all at once.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else have something or a feeling or an insight they'd like to share? Geeknificent?
So, I do sometimes have trouble focusing during meditation. It takes me a little longer to actually get to a centered point. But I did find that breathing can be a very powerful tool to help center yourself. And once you get to a certain center, things like your body sensations, noises around you start kind of becoming a little more distant. Because like let's say you have an itch on your arm or an itch on your nose, that and in some cases, if you're just sitting there idly, your mind wants to start picking at little sensations to pay attention to. And then those little itches that you're usually ignoring throughout the day start becoming more like cars honking in the street right outside your apartment, right?
Mm-hmm.
The breathing technique does really help center yourself because it gives your mind something to come back to, something to center to. And when you're doing that, it starts pushing those other sensations away. You're still aware of them, but it makes them seem more and more distant to where there's like this gap between the center of your mind and your physical sensations. And it made me think of something called the philosophy of nothing, where everything starts from nothing, right? And so, like a seed, more or less, starts from nothing until it gets food, light, water, and then it has all these things going on, making it grow into a tree. Your mind does something in a similar fashion from its infancy, where your mind is a seed as a baby, and as you grow into adulthood, it becomes this tree, absorbing all these sensations, all this light, wind, water. So that breathing technique helps you figure out how to return to that point where your mind was just a seed, the concept of nothing, the philosophy of nothing. You're essentially your 0 point, so you can essentially come back to your true center, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Reminds me of something I was thinking
Things
of.
in the seed though. The seed's not nothing, is it? The seed is like it's like a hologram of the whole thing. Everything's encoded in the geometry of space-time.
Maybe.
That's too deep, but it's weird to hear people talk about this nothing thing. Like they think that everything comes from nothing and will go back to nothing, but really, I think everything's eternal and everything's encoded
Here's the thing.
in the geometry, right? In the matrix.
Well,
We live
here's
in
the
the energy
thing.
matrix,
If you're
and the
Can I respond?
talk,
yeah, go ahead.
So
That's to ask for you.
one way of thinking about this nothingness is it's not necessarily about that things come from nothing. It's a perspective of how to look at stuff. I was talking to an old acquaintance a while ago, and they were asking how to be happy, and I said, well, practice happiness. And they were like, oh, that's vacuous, that's absurd. And I thought, well, the feelings that you currently do, they feel real to you, but they're actually also vacuous. They're just habits that you have. And so there's this idea in some Eastern philosophies of nothingness. They're like everything in its underlying thing is like, whether you're happy right now or sad right now or angry right now, it's all empty. Like you could choose right now to focus on infinite laughter, and you do it for 10 minutes and you'll be cracking up more than you ever knew was possible. But you could also choose to focus on anger for the next 10 minutes and get yourself angrier than you've ever been. Like, which one is real? And I would say that actually, like, none of them.
I would say there was all degrees of the same thing.
I mean, that's one way of
Life.
talking about them. Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
But
for example, like white is supposed to be like all the colors together, right? The color white is supposed to be a mix of every single other color. So then every single color is just different degrees of white. It's all the same thing, essentially.
So one thing, I want to go back to what I was saying to Rita before about the perspective I try to bring in these classes is what is most practical. And so often these, like, I don't want to call them philosophical, but these like ways of describing everything as God's, or that there's, everything is in everything. Like, how does that help you? I mean, it might help you a little, but actually I think it's more important to ask yourself, how do I want to be? And how do I become that? And no, not even how. Let me just do that. Let me just be the best person I can. And these kind of mystical ways of talking about things, I find sometimes they might free someone up from being tangled in something, but often they're just leading to more like ungrounded ways of thinking. So, for example, the emptiness thing is profoundly insightful when you see that every state of mind, you could let go of it. Then you're left with freedom. What do I want to choose next? Yes?
During the meditation, I
here's
could
it.
not
Sigma
stop
was
my
first,
subconscious
Significant.
thoughts from flowing, right?
Can you start again? I didn't hear what you
I
said.
couldn't stop I couldn't, the whole time you was talking about being still and not letting the thoughts come in, there was this constant conversation trying to kick up, and I'm like, no, stop trying to thoughts from interrupting that feeling of just being in the stillness.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was always something keep coming, and you're constantly fighting to stop focusing on that.
Excellent. I'm so glad you shared that. So,
yeah.
Yes, that definitely happens to a lot of people when they first start meditating. But I want to give you an analogy. Let's just say we were doing a yoga class and I told everyone to stand on one foot. Maybe one or two people could do it in stillness, but almost everybody will be wobbling, or maybe after just a little while they'll be wobbling, and some people will be falling over. But if you practice balancing on one foot every day, you practice yoga every day, after a little while, you'll have this poise of amazing balance. And the same thing is true with the mind. You may have been to some meditation classes where they told you, you can never stop the mind. That's trash. Don't let yourself believe that. Because if that's what you're telling yourself, then that's what your mind will do. You absolutely can have moments of stillness. And I'm pretty sure in that meditation, you had some moments where it was stillness. Maybe a breath or two, and then the voices kick back in. As you extend those stillness moments longer and longer, you can get to where you're in the stillness for hours. And when the voice part of the mind has stopped, then other amazing things can happen.
I definitely noticed that in the beginning it was harder, and then as I was going more into practicing and focusing, the easier it became to just stop noticing the thoughts, like stop letting that take your attention and think about the breathing.
And now imagine if you'd practice that every day and like that had just become massive. Like, wow. And it's, I can put out some ideas of some things that have happened to me while I'm in there. Like, I mentioned infinite peace. You get to tap into that. Or you get to see, instead of like a thought comes up and I'm in the thought, you get to see like, oh, wow. I can see my brain starting to put a thought together. Whew. And like you get to stop them before they even happen. Or you see some like lifelong anger or sadness you had. And you're like, oh, I'm going to let go of that. It's like you feel the whole part of your brain and body that was doing that. It's just released. Like the power of that stillness and focus just gets more and more amazing every time you practice it.
And that's why it's actually good to experience those emotions, because then that way you're strengthening yourself, because suppressing it is what's going to make it hurt even more.
Interesting that was how you responded to what I just said. So I definitely don't want to encourage people to like suppress things, but I also don't think it's good to like go like, if I've had some anger arise, I could focus on the anger and like go into feeling it. I don't necessarily think that would be helpful. I think it's better to like observe it and be able to step back into the stillness. The practice that we were doing today of just coming into stillness, letting go, being able to just let go of whatever arises, giving yourself freedom first. You may then still want to go into some painful feeling, but I would, after years of practicing, I would say that generally nothing good comes from it. Being able to be fully choosing what's best for you all the time is the state of consciousness I strive for, and I encourage you to envisage and strive for that as well.
But all I was going to say in response to the insight of nothing, the philosophy basically states that it is from nothing whence everything came, and it is to nothing which everything may return. But even nothing is something.
Ha-
So you can turn that something into something else. So like you said, how we were talking about centering yourself. Once you're at that center, you can choose to do something else with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I to put it the way I normally say it, is I like to say that if we have this foundation of stillness, it's like this platform of freedom. If I then choose to be like the wildest person at the party, I get to create that in its essence. Like, what would it be like to be wildly expressive? Or if I want to go into happiness, if I'm going from just pure freedom, I can craft the happiness exactly as I want without some other old feeling or attitude or some like naggy feeling coming in. I get to be crafting my mind exactly as I want. So this like stillness, it's a freedom to completely choose where you put your focus and your feelings. Tailhole, was that a question or something?
I was just putting my controllers down
Okay.
and stretching.
And so Sigma, you
Something else that
I was going to just respond to the other thing. You know, when people start saying like abstract philosophies, and then you responded with a different way of thinking about stuff, and you know, forever religion and spiritual things can argue. And you know, I spent a decade doing it, and I'm just completely over it. I just want every one of us to be like, how am I going to be? Let me be awesome at that, and let me empower other people to be awesome at it. And so I invite you to also look at your feelings and your thoughts and just keep checking what is the most empowering, what gives you the best skills, the best feelings, what helps you thrive at life. I hope that there's some obviousness in that and that you can carry that on. And whether it's something mystical or maybe it's also attitudes about people. Sometimes you might be like, these people are not nice enough. Does that idea help you? What about the idea of like, hey, I'm going to go in and help everyone be more awesome? You know, with every attitude or thought, you can ask yourself, what here would be more helpful? Sorry, Sigma, I jumped into...
that came up for me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Tell us more.
Well, you did start before me. Something funny that happened is I was sat here thinking about having my eyes closed. Sometimes I find it hard to keep my eyes closed, and I was wondering, is that like a requirement? Do they want you to try to do that as much as you can to help you focus? Probably.
So there are
meditation.
meditation.
I opened my eyes and I looked at. I was thinking that everybody else probably has their eyes closed, and I'm supposed to too. But then I open my eyes and I see you like making gestures with your hands. I just thought that was a sweet irony that you were still expressing like visually with your hands, but we were probably all supposed to be like eyes closed.
Well, I was
That was kind of
hoping
a funny moment.
that most of you had your eyes closed and in the stillness. But if someone new's just arrived, I'm trying to like capture them, or if someone's just jumped on the live stream. And hey, welcome out to everyone out there on the live stream. And yeah, there are schools of meditation where they say have your eyes open the whole time. You're learning how to concentrate wherever you go. I like the eyes closed because then everything in your consciousness is just coming from your consciousness.
Definitely.
But yeah, different practices get different results. Hey, Zara Rin has said some stuff, so I just want to read that. So they said, self-fulfilling prophecy is strong. Let's all say kind words to ourselves for stillness and focus every day. And being able to fully choose what's best for you, that's unlocking God mode. I hope that's a video game reference and not... I mean, maybe it's a religious statement as well. But yeah, full empowerment, full choice. I hope not just for yourself, but that it becomes contagious to everybody around you. Happiness, empowerment, playfulness, confidence. I mean, have you ever had an experience? Maybe you're playing sport with some friends or doing art or jamming some music with some friends. And then somebody just got in the zone And then the rest of you started like being way more playful and more skillful. And somehow there's just like this vibe happened where you all got better at the thing. And my understanding of that is like somebody suddenly just tapped into more creativity and they were feeling more confident. They were imagining being better. And so then they're doing what their mind's envisaging. And then it's contagious. Other people start imagining it and getting into the vibe and feeling it, and their subconscious is imagining being awesome. And so I want you to tap into that God mode, creativity, awesomeness all the time and make it contagious for people around you. Gignificent?
Oh, no, I was responding to someone in the background. Don't mind me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, like if they see somebody else going further, then they realize that they can push themselves further.
Absolutely.
They realize they have more potential. Yeah.
Or you go to a comedy show and everybody's laughing, and suddenly, without even thinking about it, you have permission to just laugh harder than you normally would ever laugh. Yeah. Or maybe it's not even about permission. Maybe you're just feeling it. Everybody's laughs is bubbling up inside you, so you just let yourself laugh even harder. And I think we can all be that force for the people around us to bring more joy, to bring more peace, to bring more happiness, to be more skillful, to be more creative, letting yourself envisage awesomeness all the time, coming from that center of freedom, unlocking God mode. That's what these whole sessions are about. I just want to come back to, I asked at the end of the meditation if anyone had a feeling or an insight or experience they wanted to share. And we've been running off in a whole bunch of conversations, but I just want to see if anyone else had anything else they wanted to share before we went off too far. Askiali?
Yeah. It's funny that you made the reference of a whole ocean of stillness, because I felt actually kind of the opposite with flakes. I don't know how to say it, with short periods, basically. I feel like basically I'm in this desert-like environment in the middle of the ocean. There's nothing around me, there's nothing, and underneath of me it's really so infinite almost, at least for my standards. Yeah. And also thalassophobia, probably, the fear of large waters, and hydrothalassophobia, so the big unknown creatures in the water.
Yo, guess
really,
I got
I don't want to sound negative,
hydromechaphobia.
but
Fear of large machines underwater. Hydromechaphobia or something.
Yeah. Robotic dinosaur.
no, but seriously, like I feel really bad
Oh,
sometimes.
So I wasn't sure if you were saying the desert was like another kind of stillness, but you were saying it was a desert emptiness that didn't feel good.
Yeah, so there's nothing. Yeah, it's.
Thanks for sharing, and let me just stream of consciousness respond with different stuff. I hope that there were some moments that felt nice or peaceful, and I hope you can focus on them and grow more of those moments. If you breathe and go into stillness, and then what's left is this spaciousness that does not feel good, I invite you to maybe do shorter meditations and set the intention that before you start, you try to imagine the kinds of feelings or states of consciousness that you want to practice. I don't know if just going into stillness makes profound peace and happiness, or if that just happens because enough different people say in the stillness is beautiful peace and happiness. In the stillness is beautiful peace and happiness. So our subconscious just kind of makes that most of the time. Maybe in the stillness most of the time it is just natural that it's peace and happiness. Or maybe that's just a suggestion. I don't know. But I want to give you that suggestion. I want to give you that idea that when you think about stillness, when you think about your inner self, what you see, what you think about, what you find is some strength, is some goodness. And when you see flakes and emptiness, you just let them go. Come back to feeling the breath. You're learning to choose where to focus, where to feel, how to be. I don't know what's going on in your life. Maybe more regular exercise, maybe hugs, maybe the things that make you happy may be important to also do that. But when it comes to brain training and awareness, I'll reiterate what I said, is the moments that felt good, the moments where it was a nice peace or a relaxation or a joy, cultivate more of them. When you see these other things, label them as, there's a state of consciousness and it's passing. If you ever believe, this is how I'm feeling, label it. That's just a belief. That's not who I am. It's not the way things really are. I'm going to let that go and just hear my breath. Right now, all that exists is just this sound. Okay, next one, I'm going to hear it and I'm going to feel comfort in it. I can do a little bit of comfort there. All right, next one, I'm going to just hear it with a little more comfort. And take meditation. The theme today was learning to watch the mind and learning how to focus. Make it a practice of mastering your consciousness. It's not stuff that happens to you. When stuff's happening to you, you just let it go. You come back into awareness and you choose what you're going to practice. You choose what you're going to cultivate. And maybe it's helpful to know that I'm sure people here care about you. If I could give you a hug right now, I would. And I hope in that hug you'd feel a warmth and a joy and an oasis in the desert and a spring of happiness that fills it up. And, maybe you'll find other mental tricks that bring you joy, different ways of thinking about stuff, different things that you appreciate, people that you care about that you haven't talked to for a while, and you're going to talk to them in a way that brings you joy. I hope that you can, I was going to say fill that desert with awesomeness, but maybe that metaphor won't work for you. So I hope you can create...
It's funny, but... I'm sorry,
I was going to say, I hope you can create whatever states of consciousness, whatever metaphors, whatever ways of being that are awesome for you, and you keep practicing them. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, so basically I had a lot of unrest this week, and this meditation really did me good, actually, like this, like in general, and also this session specifically. But you also answered my question. Like, I feel like I'm so reactive, not proactive. I had a good time, actually, the last, let's say, 4 weeks. But this week was minor irritations. But I feel like I'm so emotional and everything is so overwhelming. And but the answer you gave, those thoughts and emotions are not me. necessarily. I think this was a really good one that helped me.
Awesome.
Just treat them in this way. I feel like it's bigger than me, you know, sometimes. It's overwhelming. It's disappointing, maybe, yeah. And literally, I was in this ocean today in this meditation, and you were talking about it, but for you, it was stillness. For me, it was uncertainty and something bigger than me, maybe. But like, it really still did me good. Like, yeah.
Almost always I've found
Thanks.
that meditation does good. Like if people feel like it's really rocky, afterwards they're like, oh, I cleared out those rocks. So I'm glad that even though there was these other feelings, you still feel like it did you good, and it gave you a shift in perspective, and it gave you some tools to help at different times. A couple of things I want to add to what you were just saying is, you know, this week has been, it's bigger than you, it's looming, it's pressure, whatever you said. Every time we meditate, it's like a release valve. You know, you just get to let it go a little bit. And the reactions you've been having, yes, it's great to see that, hey, that's not really you, that's just maybe something that built up. But also in the stillness, you get to say, hey, well, like, what happens this week if the same thing happens? Wow, if I could react any way I'd choose. What if I made that trigger, push the button of me just becoming really strong, centered, and awesome? And you practice that a few times, and you'll be surprised. Something that normally would be like, just reminds you, boom, here I am, feeling strong and empowered and ready to give them a really great response. So yeah, making this space, making this stillness, it gives you that freedom to practice different ways to be, to imagine different ways to be. Rita, I wanted to come back to what you were saying before about feeling the things. What I hope comes to everybody as they practice mindfulness, as you learn to see more closely in your consciousness, you get to see like a feeling isn't just a feeling. It also often, almost always, comes with some attitude or some memory or some thought.
Or some meaning.
I think the meaning is something we attribute to it. That's not what I'm talking about right now. So you'll see that like, oh, I feel like that about this memory because I think they should have been nicer to me, or because I labeled it that I'm blur. Or if you look closely, you'll always see that there are thoughts and feelings and ideas and memories. They kind of come packaged together. And often when you look at the thought or the label that you have about something, you can see, oh, actually that's not so accurate. So, for example, I remembered all the times kids were horrible to me and nobody spoke up. And so I just assumed everybody hated me. And everybody hating me felt terrible. But the reality is that maybe a bunch of people wanted to be kind and nice and they just weren't brave enough. And maybe the people who were mean to me were actually being nice and it was sarcasm and I'm just not very good at understanding it.
Or it could just be that our likabilities are just different based on the groups that we're in. Like sometimes you could be likable to popularity, city folks, and not to mention forest dwellers and sand dwellers. You could be popular in your own groups, no matter if they're biker gangs, no matter if just whatever you can name it.
Totally. And so maybe
your likability could be, your likability can be to being a comedian. Your likability can be because of like romantic wise. It could be anything that you can ever put your mind into. It can be due to spirituality. You could be likable due to being like a scientist, but then you could be well hated by the spiritual community. You can be like a biker gang and be hated by, by the old folks because because they look at you like you're up to no good when you're not, and then like it's like
So
everything has a drawback.
in
Like
terms
abilities,
in
they
term
all have to they all have to they have to have the dislikes and like abilities in order to exist. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
so I would actually like to get to a point where everyone has cultivated a way of being that is likable by everybody. I would love a world where people are kind and patient and caring towards everyone. And thanks for reminding me of that, because it's something that I think is important to envisage. But my point that I was actually trying.
Patience.
Can we go back to the point we were
sorry.
talking about? Because otherwise we'll just be off on too many tangents. My point was, if you look at a feeling, you can see what's the story that went along with it. And then often you can let go of that story, and then the feeling loses its power, and you're in a place where you're free to feel something else. And if you've been having the world feels bigger than you, you can see, I've been telling myself this story, the world feels bigger than me. And then that feels, well, what if I look at the stuff differently? Okay, there's these 5 things I have to do. That's a different way of looking at it. Or, whenever...
That's actually very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice description, because even science is just a story, a description of how we see things. It's not necessarily the way things are. It's just our understanding or our vision of things.
Absolutely.
And this is like, basically, this is my reality, like the story that I make.
So one of the reasons...
Not necessarily true.
One of the reasons I try to interrupt stories or mystical things so much is not just that I think that mystical stuff's not helpful. You made a really good point. Even science as a story is not the actual reality. And trying to see things as real as possible is so much more simple. I mean,
Like skepticalism?
Well, no, that's another thing that I love. But right now I'm talking not about that. I'm talking about more of the mindfulness, which is, the world... I'll make this point first. So, the world's bigger than me. Well, actually, it's maybe just 5 people that need me to do something. But actually, even just labeling, it's 5 people who need me to do stuff, is still my story. What if I just forgot about having a story and I just observed there's some people and there's some stuff going on? And always, in every aspect of your life, I invite you to always just strip away all the stories and try and just see what's actually there. And the more you do that, the simpler the world is. We're just monkeys on a rock. Everything else is just stories. And, if you get into that state of seeing things with simplicity, life is a lot easier. Gignificent?
On your point of mysticism, what I wanted to add was that in this setting, well, any mysticism or spirituality in general, it's very difficult to prove any of it, right? Because anyone who's had a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, or any kind of mystical experience in general, that is an experience that is unique to them. It's not an experience that can be shared with any amount of evidence. So it's not necessarily constructive to try and apply that, especially in a setting like this. where you can't really provide any evidence that what you're saying in that regards is true or correct, because that is an experience that is unique to you. So while you may have had an experience that you 100% believe without a doubt is true, you do not really have a way of conveying to someone or being able to 100% convince someone that situation is true. So going back to meditation, meditation is a useful tool because it gives people the tools for mindfulness, something that can actually be a real world application versus an supposed spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I definitely, when I had my chapters of mystical stuff, I asked myself hey, even if I'm right, how is this ever going to help somebody else? How can I, for thousands of years, this group's been fighting with this group and disagreeing with that group. Even if I'm certain of this magical thing that can never be proved, what difference does it make? And, I really just want to focus on the stuff that we can all obviously agree upon. And the world needs happiness and peace and kindness and better food production and distribution and better ways for people to find who they have in common and ways for projects to happen and kids to be kinder to each other and better education resources and more health and fitness and healthy activities. The world really needs these things. And if we focus on that, that makes everybody happier and better. The more real we are, the more awesome it is for everyone.
Right.
So Askiali, thank you for sharing the hard stuff, and I hope that everyone can see that brought real answers out that are hopefully really helpful.
Can I say one more thing?
No, of course you can. Please.
Yeah, I felt like, today it was really more like a challenge to meditate because I had these things, and I don't know, I almost felt like this is the real proving of a real test of, again, how good I am. Is it a good way to look at it?
What do you mean by how good you are?
The ultimate test to see how skilled you are in meditation, to be able to, so I was able to come back quite efficiently, but yeah. I was wondering that if you have this really nice and pure bliss kind of meditation, or you have this meditation that is you're basically detoxing, you're putting out the top poisons or stuff, let's say. Which one is a more, I don't know, preferable? Which one is more higher, maybe?
It's a great question, and I'm actually going to sidestep the question, because both can be awesomely helpful. You have some time swimming in infinite bliss, it's going to be awesome. And you have some time where you see hard stuff coming up and you've got the skill to come back to centeredness. That is transforming and empowering and liberating. They're both awesome. But what about if you'd been sitting there and the bad stuff had came up and you didn't have the skill to come back to the breath? I want to say that that's still awesome. Every time that you're watching your mind and learning is great. And so when it comes to meditation and comes to brain training, I want to encourage everybody to not have a judgment of how good is this one, or how am I doing, or how good am I? I encourage you in each moment of meditation to just be curious and excited for this moment. And yes, people have had terrible meditations. They couldn't focus for a second, or it felt terrible. And then afterwards, they just felt liberated. So each moment that you're meditating is great. You're learning to watch your mind, to be more aware. So Askiali, I said I'm going to sidestep your question. I hope that everybody tries to cultivate the attitude that any moment that I'm meditating is great. And I'm not going to compare it to other moments. I'm just going to cherish each moment that I do. Comparison can sometimes be like, yeah, I'm awesome, that's motivating. But then it could also at other times be like, oh, no, I'm not. And that might be not motivating. But it's also possible that comparison can be like, yeah, I'm awesome, I don't need to meditate anymore. So in general, I've found comparing or judging is actually most of the time not helpful. I'd recommend the same thing, not just for meditation, but for your sports skills or how cool you are, or anything. Judging yourself or others is almost never helpful. And even the times when it is helpful, it's not a helpful habit because you're still introducing the times when it won't be helpful. Just appreciating each moment is the approach that I would recommend. And yes, the fact that you could bring yourself back into the stillness and that you're empowered by that, I'm so happy you said that. I'm so happy that you've practiced that skill, and I'm proud of you. That's great. I still want to say, every moment that you're meditating, every moment appreciating that you're doing that is awesome. With one caveat. If you're ever meditating and I don't know, maybe some traumatic memory or something comes up, maybe you might have the ability to be like, letting that go, transforming that. Okay, here's the story I have around that, and I don't need that anymore. I am pure enlightened consciousness. Awesome. And that's gone now. I'm great. But if something comes up and it really hurts and you can't find that back to the breath, yes, I hope that each one of you can get to that point where you choose where you're going to focus. But sometimes the best thing to do is to go for a jog or to put on some music that you love, have a dance, and then come back to the meditation with fresh eyes. And if you find what you're focusing on or what you're contemplating is not helpful, stop it. Try something else. I know I had a time where I felt like I wasn't motivated enough, and I thought, I'll meditate on all the suffering in the world. And it just made me sad and didn't help. It didn't motivate me. Yes, I saw that there was more purpose, it helped everybody, but it didn't actually make me more purposeful. So, guide your own meditation practice in a way that empowers you and helps you and makes you happy. So Askiali, I'm glad in amongst those not good feelings that you found back into that stillness and back into that strength. It's awesome. And also if someone had some not nice feeling, but you just kept coming back to the breath, maybe it wouldn't be empowering, but you did just keep coming back into that stillness, that's also great. But if you have something not helpful come up and you're kind of just tangled up in the not helpfulness, if you've tried to go into the stillness for a while and it's not working, then I suggest that you stop and have a dance or a hug or something else instead. What's the time? Wow, it's almost time for our closing meditation. Any last questions or comments? to those of you who are newer here or people in the live stream, I actually generally try to make these sessions not talk about mysticism or spirituality, because so often it leads to disagreements, and as I said, I don't think it's practical. So most of these sessions are just practical skills the whole time. So if anyone got turned off by any of the spiritual discussions, know that we try to normally keep it as empowering as we can. Sigma?
I'm not sure what we mean by spiritual stuff. I want to be clear about that.
It's a good
Can
question.
you give me some examples?
So let me talk about what I do want us to do, which is learn how to create different states of mind, how to make new habits. And there are some perspectives that may or may not be true, but that either way, it doesn't make a difference to how you live. For example, you were saying, everything comes, whether it's happiness or sadness, all comes from the same source. That is an idea that I have meditated on in the past, and I found it actually doesn't change anything. Yes, maybe
degrees.
Maybe it could make you be okay with sadness and suffering, it's all just part of a spectrum. But I don't. Or if someone's believing in like different spirits or different dimensions or mystical powers.
Yeah, that's what I'm about.
Yeah, I mean,
Spirit animals.
Yeah, all that stuff. Basically, I want people to think, okay, what can I do that basically everyone would be like, oh yeah, that's real and that's good. And I want us to prioritize the stuff that's obviously real and good. Someone might say, oh, kindness to everybody, that's not real. But actually there are people who try to live with kindness to everybody. It is a real thing. It is something that you can cultivate. So, yes, the level of goodness and excitement that we're trying to cultivate, I want that to be superhuman. But I want it to be things where, like, if somebody actually did it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that guy did just shoot 5 basketballs from halfway down the field. Whereas if somebody was like, hey, I was talking to the angels, everybody watching them, they're like, nah, he's just sitting there imagining stuff. And some people believe he did it, but some people think he's just imagining it. So I want us to do stuff that's like real and awesome. Yeah.
I found a document once and it said, somebody wrote this down, and it said that everything is always happening all the time. You just have to identify with the experience that you want. I thought that was the most profound statement. So by meditating, you're attracting the thoughts and feelings and positivity and the good things you want, and you don't have to identify with those negative things. You can just, the good life that you want is out there, and it's just a matter of focusing on that rather than thinking about the dark things, maybe.
In one sense, I want to say absolutely. But I also want to be careful because, there are times that people are just unlucky and they're caught up in bad situations. And I don't want to ever be a mystical person to say, hey, you caused that because of what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I want us to be real and empowered. But likewise, yes, I want us to be empowered that, yeah, in a little while of focus and change, you can change things. And then there are also critics of that. They'll be like, oh, well, you're just really privileged. What about people who are parts of the world where they can't change stuff? Whatever situation you're in, I want people to be empowered to make the most of the situation they're in. And I know my life, I have definitely had chapters where I leveled up and took myself to different places. And I hope everybody is leveling up as much as they are able. And we create a world where we help each other level up.
Yeah, people thrive with cooperation, and we struggle with competition. Something I thought about when you were saying about creating the happiness.
Well, some people also thrive in competition. That's the thing. Every different belief has different perspectives. Yeah.
Something else I heard, that every truth is half lie. How do you feel about that?
Well, this is the thing. It's still another abstract idea. Maybe there's ways of looking at that seem true most of the time. Maybe there's ways of looking at it where it just seems like, gravity. Is gravity half a lie? I don't know. Like, there's always some perspective you can see from these like statements, which makes it look right or not. So yeah, in that way, what you said is true. But yeah, I think you should try to find ways of thinking that are just as practical as possible. Like spiritual statements or philosophies, if they're not like, hey, do this and get this result, or if they're not like a perspective that really empowers accurate goodness, I'd try and find the ways of seeing life that are as practical as possible. And there are some perspectives that some people find really helpful. It's very famous, the yin yang, that every bit of goodness has some darkness in it, and every bit of darkness has some goodness in it. But almost everybody I know who really believes that, there might be some ways that brings them some peace, but there are also ways that like unempowers them. And like, instead of seeing how good goodness is, they're like, eh. So I think it's much better to like love goodness, love kindness, love wisdom, love improving our skills, being healthier, being fitter. Be excited about good stuff and make more of it, because that makes things actually better.
Here's something I thought about when you said that, is that when you're young and you don't understand anything and you have an ego, you're bad, right? As a younger person, you make bad choices, you take risks, you go out and party too much, you drink, you damage yourself. And then as you get older and wiser, then you move to the positive side where you realize yourself. You grow beyond that ego. Maybe you let that go. You drop the bad habits. So life is a balance of the two, the toxic side and then the good side. If you can grow beyond the toxic part, then you can have the rest of your life as the good part. That's maybe one way to think about that.
Yeah, I hope everybody moves away from toxic things as fast as they can and cultivates helpful, positive things as rich and wonderfully as they can. I can see Kelly's typing something. Kelly, after that comment, I think we're going to begin our closing meditation. Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad you had a good time. We do this every week, starting 2 hours before now, and you're always welcome. It's been a pleasure to have you. And we live streamed it. So if you'd like to go to youtube.com/United Visionaries. Today's class is there, and 2 years worth of classes are there. So hopefully you can find the meditations you love the most and replay them, or maybe some of the past discussions. Jump in and make some comments, like re-spark those best, most enlightening conversations. It's been a pleasure to have you. All right, and with that, let's begin our closing meditation. Trying to just see the time. There we go. Oh, it's time for me to finish, but let's just do a quick meditation because that's what we do here. All right. I invite everybody to just notice your state of mind right now. And then bring your attention into your breath. Some of you might have noticed that as soon as you focused on the breath, it was relaxing and soothing. if you didn't notice that. It might be nice to just imagine that the more you meditate, it's just a way to more quickly step into this foundation of stillness, peace, freedom. And now invite everybody to feel in your nose, feel the place where the air is moving. And then just keep feeling that physical sensation and using that as your anchor. Make each breath feel more calming, more centering, more powerful. It's like you're training whatever feeling you choose, training those positive feelings into who you are. Training peace, freedom, happiness into your very essence. Take a moment to remember or feel the best moments from today's classes. It could also be a challenging idea that you saw the truth of. You could imagine if that went through your whole way of thinking. And I'm going to sum up what I wanted you to take from today. Aware of your mind in each moment, choosing how to focus, what parts of life you're going to focus on, getting really good at stepping into peace, happiness, joy. So you get to make awesome feelings all the time. So let's just take some breaths and imagine, always aware and crafting beautiful moments. And share that wisdom with others, either just by being that peace and joy, or wherever possible, share the ideas, share the insights, help people learn to be the masters of their own consciousness. Maybe create some clips of the YouTube video and share it with people. Spread positivity, spread awesomeness wherever you can, however you can. For the last little bit of the meditation, practice whatever you like, envisage whatever you think will be most helpful for you. And thank you all for being here. I do really hope that you rewatch these meditations and that you share them with other people. And I hope that you all come again.